Good evening, everyone, and let me call to order this evening's meeting of the Newtown Township Board of Supervisors for April 10th, 2024. We welcome everyone who's here this evening. I'll let you know that in 2 weeks is our next meeting, and you're welcome to come back. Be good to see everybody here. But really, seriously, welcome. We have some wonderful business to take care of this evening, especially at the beginning of the show. So let us first observe a moment of silence. It's customary that we hold a moment of silence. So if everyone could just do so along with me, with the board. Thank you. Thank you. Now, please join the board with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. Mr. Lewis, are there any changes to the agenda this evening?
One change, Mr. Chairman. Item 11B1 is being removed from the agenda.
Okay, thank you. So without further ado, let's get right into our special actions. And I believe we're having the police officer swearing in first. So Chief Hearn, would you like to come forward?
Good evening, board members. First off, I would like to thank the Board of Supervisors again for their tremendous support of the Newtown Township Police Department and the Fire Department tonight. Their interest in public safety of this community is a priority, as indicated by their actions this evening. We cannot do what we do without your constant support, so thank you. At this evening, it is my pleasure to present to you our newest officer, Police Officer Victoria Bianca Azara. Vicki, front and center. Victoria is a resident of Warrenton Township and a graduate of Central Bucks High School. She also attended and graduated with a bachelor's degree in criminal justice with a minor in psychology from Temple University, where she was also on the dean's list. Victoria interned with both the Bucks County Detectives and Bucks County Youth Center before beginning the police academy. She attended the Temple University Police Academy and successfully graduated on March 29, 2024. It should be noted that Victoria, her proud parents, and family and friends are here this evening to congratulate her on her accomplishments and her new career. So we are fortunate to have Vicki join our team. So with that, Honorable Judge Mick Petrucci.
Thank you, Chief.
No problem.
You ready? Yeah. So you're remember left hand, right hand up. Left hand on Bible, right hand up. Oh, hand up. Thank you. Are you ready? Okay. All right, welcome everyone. Oh. Welcome everyone. Are you ready? Okay, repeat after me. I, Victoria B. Azara,
I, Victoria B. Azara,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the United States,
the Pennsylvania Constitution,
the Pennsylvania Constitution,
the laws of Pennsylvania,
the laws of Pennsylvania,
and the governmental subdivision
and the governmental subdivision
of Newtown Township,
of Newtown Township,
including those otherwise contracted
including those otherwise contracted
by a law enforcement services agreement,
by a law enforcement services agreement,
and that I will discharge the duties
and that I will discharge the duties
as a police officer
as a police officer
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
Congratulations, officer. You're welcome. Absolutely. Congrats.
And Chief Forsyth, we're passing it over to you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board, Manager Lewis. It's taken us a long time to get here tonight, and this night is being made possible by us obtaining the SAFER grant for 2023. We started in 2019, and finally in 2023, we were finally awarded the grant. It's my pleasure to introduce our 5 new firefighters tonight. The first firefighter to be introduced is Ethan Tecker. Ethan is a resident of Wrightstown Township. He's currently serving as Deputy Chief of the Lingahaken Fire Company. Ethan started his fire service career in 2017. He's obtained a bachelor's degree in criminal justice from Temple University. Ethan currently works at R&S Equipment, or he did, as a heavy equipment mechanic, bringing his mechanic expertise to Newtown Fire Rescue. Ethan resides on his family horse farm with his fiancee Katie, who is a local veterinarian. In his free time, Ethan is an avid outdoorsman and enjoys spending time taking care of his farm. Our second new firefighter is Megan Cox. Meg has 6 years in the fire service and has worked for Lower Southampton Township for the past 4 years, attaining the position of Assistant Fire Marshal. Meg resides in Conshohocken Borough and volunteers with the Nottingham Fire Department. She started her fire service career after obtaining a Bachelor of Science degree in Forensic Science with a certificate in fire investigation from the University of New Haven, Connecticut. Along with her response roles, she is nationally certified fire investigator and also acted as the Deputy Emergency Management Coordinator in Lower Southampton Township. Meg is an avid reader and enjoys the beach and the pool. She's a fan of the Flyers, the Chicago Cubs, and Taylor Swift. Meg enjoys spending a lot of time with her family and friends. She says she's looking forward to working here in Newtown. Our next firefighter is Tyler Starkey. Tyler owns his own contracting company. He started his fire service career with the Midway Fire Company in 2009. He is currently a volunteer firefighter with Delaware Valley Fire Company. For those of you who don't know, that's in Irwin, Tinicum Township in Bucks County. Tyler is married with 2 young children residing in Pipersville, PA. Tyler graduated from the Middle Bucks Institute of Technology for Public Safety and achieved a Bachelor's of Science degree from the Westchester University in Criminal Justice. Tyler has technical certifications and training in wildlife firefighting as well as water rescue. Tyler enjoys the outdoors, spending time with his young children and working on renovating his home. Our next candidate is Daniel Burke. Dan comes to Newtown with 16 years' experience in the fire service as a volunteer and career firefighter and EMT. He most recently was employed by the Trenton Mercer Airport as a captain running one of their shifts of firefighters. He has been a volunteer firefighter for the Falls Township Fire Company since 2008. Dan is a graduate of Pennsbury High School and attends Bucks County Community College for his fire science program. And our final firefighter to be sworn in tonight is Lucas Rosenthal. Lucas comes to Newtown from Bristol Township Fire Rescue, where he started last year as a firefighter. Lucas currently lives in Doylestown. He also works part-time for the Lambertville Fire Department. He's been a volunteer firefighter for the past 6 years with the Midway Volunteer Fire Company. Lucas also attended the Middle Bucks Institute of Technology for Public Safety and has followed that with an associate's degree in fire science from Bucks County Community College. Lucas also has a bachelor's degree in fire science and emergency management from Purdue University. And Lucas is newly engaged to his fiancée, Evelyn. Your Honor, they're all yours.
Thank you. Is the new chief the one hold the bylaw for them?
No one said.
Chief Ken? They nominated you, Chief. Here, I'll stand on this side. Yeah, do you want to do it in the middle or? Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know if you can all. So being we're doing 5 at a time, I'm going to say state your name, and hopefully you guys state your real names, okay? So you guys ready? Right hands up. Okay. I state your name. Do solemnly swear that I will support, obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States, Constitution of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and Constitution and bylaws of Newtown Township as a firefighter EMT of Newtown Township. I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity. Congratulations. You're all firefighters now.
Would it be appropriate at this time for us to take some pictures? That's right. Yeah. I'm sorry.
We're almost done, Mr. Chairman, I promise. With the hiring of the five firefighters, we have been able to extend our service to 7 days a week. With now having 2 platoons working 7 days a week in Newtown Township and Newtown Borough, it's my privilege to introduce 2 gentlemen that have worked very hard on the progress that we've made in the last several years. The first gentleman to be promoted to lieutenant tonight is Joseph Martindale. Joe has been with the department since January 1998. In those 26 years, Joe has accumulated numerous certifications. Joe has served the last 15 years as a firefighter in charge, which is something that we'll never say again, Joe. Joe is married to his wife, Sandy, and has 2 children, Haley and Joe Jr. You want to go up and hold the Bible? Okay.
Is that easier? Jeff, good? Okay. So repeat after me. I, Joseph Martindale,
I, Joseph Martindale,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania,
the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania,
and Constitution and bylaws
and Constitution and bylaws
of Newtown Township
of Newtown Township
as the lieutenant
as the lieutenant
of the Newtown Township Fire Department.
of the Newtown Township Fire Department.
I will discharge the duties
I will discharge the duties
of my office with fidelity.
of my office with fidelity.
Congratulations, Lieutenant. Congrats again. You did an excellent job. Thank you.
And our last presentation tonight, Stephen Katz will be promoted to lieutenant. Steve has been a member of the department since October of 2001. In those 22 years, Steve has accumulated numerous fire certifications. Steve has served as a firefighter in charge for the last 4 years. Steve is married to his wife Karen, and he has 2 young boys, Owen and Aiden. Oh, I seen her walk in. I didn't know where she went.
There you go. Okay. All right, you're going to repeat after me. I, Stephen Katz,
I, Stephen Katz,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the United States,
Constitution of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania,
the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania,
and Constitution and bylaws
and the Constitution and bylaws
of Newtown Township
of Newtown Township
as the lieutenant
as the lieutenant
of the Newtown Township Fire Department.
of the Newtown Township Fire Department.
I will discharge the duties
I will discharge the duties
of my office with fidelity.
of my office with fidelity.
Congratulations. Congratulations, Lieutenant.
Now would be the time to solicit pictures, right? So how do we want to do this? Any order?
That's entirely up to you.
Mr. Chairman, if you would, if you want to recess for a few minutes, we'll get a photo op in front
Yeah.
with the board of supervisors, and we'll go from there.
Okay,
Thank you.
we are recessed until we take some pictures. We'll call back. Everybody ready again? Let us come back to order. That was certainly a exhilarating, fun time to have those new staff come on and share the time with pictures and family. Let's go right into our next order of business, which is our first round of public comment. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to give public comment during our first round? Yes. Now, if this is about an item on the agenda later, if you're here for something on the agenda that's later on in the agenda, we'd ask you for hold your comment, but otherwise feel free.
It's about the development next door to the
Right.
property.
Yeah, there'll be a time for public comment just related to that. I mean, you're welcome to speak on anything. Yeah, we'll be sure to let you know. But I think it's the next thing on the agenda, however, so. Just hang on for a second and you might be back up here. Oh, we actually have two other things first. Yeah, any other public comment that's for something not on the agenda? Okay. Going on, no minor approvals. We have reports of boards, committees, and commissions. I have nothing to report for myself this evening. Madam Vice Chair.
I would just like to say how proud I am of the new firefighters and police officers. We work hard to have a great community of public servants around here, and I think we do a very good job of it. And I want to thank everybody for their help. And also, I would just like to mention that our plastics ordinance went into effect yesterday with no problems. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Snyder. Mr. Mack?
Yes, I attended the zoning hearing board on April 4th where the Newtown Artesian Water Company was asking for a variance to essentially create a PFAS filtration building. And I was glad to be a party to the case because I live within 500 feet, so I was able to testify. But today, if you might have read in the newspaper, the Environmental Protection Agency has now required that all PFAS be eliminated. It can't exceed 4 parts per trillion in public drinking water. That's below the detectable level, and that's what the Newtown Artesian Water Company is preparing to do with this filtration. As a party to the case, though, I live close to it, and I just don't know, for example, the noise level of such a facility. And I asked that the water company put up some kind of barrier, like trees, low-hanging trees, to mitigate the sound that may be involved, and they said they would do that. So that's my report. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Mack. John, in this direction, Mr. Davis, anything?
Nothing to report, thank you.
All right, Mr. Calabro? Okay. That brings us to our public hearing. And I'd ask Mr. Sander to give us some.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will
Leadership.
do so. We are now opening a public hearing on the application of Durham Investment LP for a conditional use to operate a general office, a medical office, and a daycare on property located at 413 Durham Road in the PS2 Professional Services District. Mr. Murphy is here representing the applicant. Before we get started, I would mark for the record, Exhibit B1 is a copy of the application. Exhibit B2 is a copy of the proof of publication of notice of this evening's hearing. Board Exhibit 3, B3, is a photograph depicting the posting of the property with notice of this evening's hearing. And Exhibit B4 is the CKS Engineers letter dated February 23rd, 2024, reviewing this application. Mr. Murphy.
Good evening, and thank you. Thank you. As Dave said, I'm Ed Murphy. I'm here tonight on behalf of the applicant to discuss a conditional use application that was submitted earlier this year and which involves the property immediately adjacent to the northeast of where we're sitting tonight. That property is slightly less than 5 acres. It is zoned capital P, capital S-2, professional services, and obviously maintains frontage on Durham Road. The nature of the conditional use application, as Mr. Sander indicated, was to seek conditional use approval for a 6,600 square foot medical/general office building, 1 story, together with a 1-story, 10,000 square foot daycare, child care center. Both of those uses, as you will hear from my witness, are specifically identified uses that are allowed as conditional uses in the PS2 zoning district, and hence the reason for the application this evening. Most recently, this application was reviewed by your Planning Commission last month and received recommendation to move forward to this body this evening, and pursuant to Mr. Sander, this hearing tonight's already been publicly advertised for consideration tonight. My intention would be to offer the board 2 witnesses. One, John Kennedy, a professional planner who's going to talk about compliance of the application with the standards for conditional uses in your zoning ordinance, and also Andy Heinrich, a licensed professional traffic consultant who will discuss traffic implications for the uses that we've described. One other bit of housekeeping. The original plan that was submitted with this application this winter contemplated a 10,000 square foot medical office/general office building. However, over the course of discussions emanating from even last fall, when this application was a zoning hearing board application, we were clearly directed by the township that township would not entertain any type of zoning variance associated with it. So the building that houses the general office, medical office use has been downsized to its current size of 6,600 square feet, notably to eliminate the need for any variances. This plan tonight is variance-free. There was an issue raised by your planner in her review about whether or not improvements could be located in the front yard. And I think those of you on the board that, and I know several of you attended the Planning Commission last month, heard that conversation. And that night, we did bring agreed that night to provide a revised plan that eliminated any parking or any other things in the minimum front yard. So the plan that we subsequently submitted after the Planning Commission meeting now moves any parking that was previously located in front of the buildings to the rear of them. So the plan tonight eliminates that one issue that was a potential zoning issue raised by your solicitor. So that's off the table. So we believe tonight that the plan is zoning variance free, and I will be quick to acknowledge that for board knows and audience that even if the board does support the conditional use application, this is only the first step. We have to do fully engineered land development plans that would be processed in the normal course through your boards and commissions, and we'll be back to you again sometime later in the summer or fall, whenever that is, to seek land development plan approval. So tonight, it's only the conditional use application that is advertised and which is in front of the board for consideration tonight. So with that as background, perhaps we can have both Mr. Kennedy and Mr. Heinrich sworn at the same time so that we can avoid that doing it separately.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? And this
so this is the only one that works. We'll start with Mr. Kennedy, and Dave, if you would, I will mark the curriculum vitae of Mr. Kennedy as A1.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. Thanks. It's a thick CV.
We're going to share a microphone, John, so if you want to come over here.
Okay.
And I'll be brief unless people want to ask questions about your qualifications, but you saw me hand out your curriculum vitae.
Yes.
Outlining your experience, education, et cetera. Quickly, your educational background, please.
Sure. I'm a professional land planner. I have practiced for the last 44 years. I've had my own planning firm, consulting firm for the last 34 years. I have a Bachelor of Science in Environmental Design. I'm also a member of the American Institute of Certified Planners, the Pennsylvania Planning Association, and the American Planning Association. In addition, I'm also a member of the Lower Southford Planning Commission, where I live, the Indian Valley Regional Planning Commission, and the Montgomery County Transportation Authority.
And you also serve as a consultant, a planning consultant in various municipalities, do you not?
I do. I'm the planning consultant in Lansdale Borough and in Hatboro.
Okay. And you are, for how long licensed as a planner?
For 40, I guess 35 years.
Okay. I would offer Mr. Kennedy as an expert in land planning. If anyone would like to question him about those qualifications, now would be the time.
Yeah, I would ask the board, are there any questions for Mr. Kennedy regarding his qualifications as an expert land planner?
None here.
Seeing none, he'll be accepted as such.
Thank you. John, you heard me provide an overview of the nature of the application, correct?
Correct.
And you heard me make reference to the fact that the property located next door to where we're conducting this hearing is zone PS2, right?
That is correct.
And you have you not looked at the zoning ordinance about what the purpose and intent of the PS2 zoning district is?
I have. The intent, as listed in the ordinance, is to provide reasonable standards for the harmonious development of professional and business offices which are compatible with existing residential uses within the district and surrounding residential and non-residential uses which have developed around the district.
Okay. You heard me make mention of the fact that the site is slightly less than 5 acres and maintains frontage along Durham Road, right?
That is correct.
What improvements, if any, exist on the property today?
Currently, there is a house which I believe is non-conforming. There's also an outbuilding on the property.
And you heard me quickly summarize the nature of the proposal. Just confirm your understanding. You've been to the property, obviously, many times.
I have.
Right. And explain for the board, from a planning perspective, what's the nature of the conditional use application?
What we are requesting would be use C10, which is a child care facility, specifically a daycare facility, and then also use D2 and D1 for general office and medical office.
Okay. And what is the zoning that immediately surrounds the property? What, for example, let's start here. What is this property zoned for, the township municipal
This
company?
property, which is next door, is MS, Municipal Services. The properties, which I would consider east, roughly, the properties to the south and to the west would be CM, and then the
Which is residential, right?
Which is a form of residential, correct.
Okay.
And then across the street to the north, there is one area zoned PS2, similar to this property, and then also R2, which is residential.
And am I correct that in addition to the property which is the subject of tonight's application next door, there's only one other property that's similarly zoned in the entire township, right?
That is correct. The other parcel across the street.
Okay, and you've talked about the surrounding zoning. What about the surrounding uses?
In terms of the uses, obviously to the east, we are in the township building, and there's the larger township campus. To the south and west, currently the property is vacant. However, there is a single-family detached subdivision approved on that. And then to the north there, in the other property, which is PS2, there's an animal clinic. And the property across the street, which is R2, is a townhouse community.
Making reference to the plan, and you'll have to use this microphone, John. The plan that's on the easel, it is the identical plan, is it not, to the plan that I referred to earlier that shows the 10,000 square foot daycare and the 6,600 square foot medical/general office building, right?
That is correct.
Okay. Highlight for the board the significant design elements of the plan that's part of this conditional use application.
What we see here are two buildings. The building on the left-hand side is the proposed daycare, and immediately to the left of that building is the outdoor play area, which is required by state regulations, and the daycare, if the conditional use would be approved, will have to comply with all state regulations. On the right-hand side of the plan is the proposed office building, medical office or general office right here. I would point out that because this fronts on Durham Road, there is a greater front yard setback which is required, and that's what we see here. This is 100 feet from the ultimate right-of-way line. All the parking has been placed to the side or to the rear of the two proposed buildings.
Total number of parking spaces, that plan that you just discussed contains is 84 spaces, correct?
That is correct.
And they've been allocated in accordance with the zoning ordinance by the required uses, or the uses that require certain parking ratios, correct?
That is correct. There's 40 spaces allocated for the daycare and 44 spaces allocated for a medical office. The general office actually would have slightly lower requirements.
Right, but in
So
terms
this-
of plan compliance, we took the more stringent
That's exactly
parking
right.
criteria associated with medical as opposed to general office, and that's what we applied. So,
That is correct.
okay.
Behind the parking, we then have a stormwater area, which is located in this area behind the daycare building. And then the balance of the property is simply left in open space, green space.
You're aware, are you not, that when you heard me mention that we were at the Planning Commission late last month, right?
Yes.
And as part of that Planning Commission conversation, aside from removing any improvements in the minimum front yard, there was commentary about the request for greater connectivity with sidewalks that would extend along the Durham Road frontage and into the site.
That is correct, and that is shown on this plan. We can see a trail going parallel to Durham Road right here, light color. And then there has been a sidewalk from the buildings extended to the trail.
Okay, so, yeah, my plan here shows that, but that plan does not show the sidewalk extending to the trail, is that correct?
It will as part of the
it
land
will.
development process,
Okay.
but the commitment is, John, that we would follow the recommendation you and others made at the Planning Commission to extend the sidewalks and both along the frontage and then down into the buildings.
Right, okay, thank you.
Let's talk about the comprehensive plan. I'm going to mark as Exhibit A2 what you have prepared and annotated, and I will mark as Exhibit A3 a different, slightly different future land use map that's relevant to tonight's discussion, right? As I hand out Exhibit A2, I'd like for you to identify what it is.
Currently, the existing comprehensive plan in the township was adopted in 2009. And I did look at that plan under the future land use plan. The subject property is indicated as office research use. I'm also aware that the township has gone through the process of updating their comprehensive plan, which is always a good thing. And I believe that that was authorized for advertisement on March 27th of this year. Looking at that plan, at the draft copy of that, which is on the township's website, the subject property is also located, or is also indicated as office research use.
So Exhibit A2 is the current Newtown Area Comprehensive Plan, right?
That's correct.
And you've highlighted where it says subject property in red, and you circled it, and you just wanted to confirm its location and what its intended use is pursuant to the comp plan, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And Exhibit A3 is identified as Newtown Area Comprehensive Plan future land use.
Right.
And essentially, there is no change for this particular parcel in terms of its future intended use, right?
That is correct. They are noted with the same future use on both plans.
So your testimony is that the intended use depicted on the plan that is part of the conditional use application is consistent with the comprehensive plan, both as it exists today and as it might be adopted in the future.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. Let's talk about the designation of Durham Road and why that's relevant to this particular application.
Sure. Also, in both of the comprehensive plans, there is a transportation plan which designates what the classification of various roads are. And that helps define what the road hierarchy is in the township. Durham Road is designated as a principal arterial road. As many of you know, it's a major road in the area. It typically functions to collect traffic from communities, individual communities, local roads, and also smaller collector roads. And then it is used so that residents or people driving through the township can then move from one area to another area of the township or to another adjacent township. So typically they're considered fairly important roads. From a planning standpoint, that is important because we're talking about business uses. And it certainly would be appropriate for businesses to be located on a principal arterial road.
All of us are familiar with the provisions in Article 13, Section 1300 of the jointure ordinance that deals with conditional uses generally, right?
That's correct.
And we're aware of the criteria in Section 1301 of the ordinance that highlights or identifies individual considerations that should be given by the board when considering the merit of an application for a conditional use.
That is correct.
Okay, let's take them one at a time.
Okay.
Section 1301(1) talks about consistency with the comprehensive plan and the intent of the ordinance. You've already addressed that, right?
Yes. In my opinion, the proposed plan and proposed uses do align with the comprehensive plan, both the existing and the proposed comprehensive plan.
All right.
And also the intent of the PS2 district.
Okay. Section B2 talks about the project or application not being a detriment to the community, correct?
Yes. In my opinion, these are uses which are typically in demand. In our own practice, we are working on several daycare centers, so there continues to be a demand for these types of uses. This would not be, in my opinion, detrimental to the community. I think it would be adding uses that would be desirable and also in demand for various residents. They're also not considered noxious uses. They don't have any kind of odors or loud sounds or those types of things associated with them.
What about the scale of the buildings as it relates to other surroundings and also the enhanced setback from Durham Road.
I think that that does make a difference. In fact, just looking at aerial photography, these buildings are set back quite a bit farther from the road than, say, the townhouse buildings on the other side. Both of these buildings are...
Or this building.
Or this building, correct. Both of these buildings are one-story, so they're very small in terms of their nature. They would not be a large building that would have a large visual impact as people would go down the street.
B3 talks about, and you've sort of already touched on it, whether or not the application and the proposal is suitable for the property in question. We've already discussed the fact that we're not seeking any variances, so we are fully aligned with not only the comp plan, but also the zoning ordinance in terms of the density, if you will, of the project, not requiring zoning relief, right?
That is correct. And these buildings will also have limited hours of operation. They would be typically during the daytime, Monday through Friday, no weekend hours. So it's not something that's going to be operating 24 hours a day and could have a negative impact on the surrounding residents.
One other comment or criteria is that the application would in all other respects comply with all the other applicable ordinances. And you've heard me mention at the outset that this plan would still require full engineering plans to be designed, submitted, reviewed, and approved by all the different bodies in the township. So the intention is to fully comply with all those regulations.
That is correct, and the plan that I've reviewed fully complies with all of the zoning standards for both the zoning district and also for each individual use.
Okay. The last criteria is one that we will discuss with Mr. Heinrich, and that is whether or not the application is suitable in terms of traffic safety and access, right?
That's correct. From a planning perspective, in my opinion, it is suitable. Andy will get into a little bit more detail, but as I stated earlier, these are business uses. They're located on what I would consider a major road in the township, which would be a suitable infrastructure to provide access to these businesses.
I don't have any other questions for Mr. Kennedy.
Board questions for Mr. Kennedy?
You said that there will be absolutely no hours on the weekend? No?
My understanding, I believe that's in a response letter that our engineer had supplied, but it would be business hours Monday through Friday only.
Is that true?
As far as I know, yeah, I think we talked about at the Planning Commission, the earliest hour might be 6 o'clock, or when parents might want to drop children off at the daycare, and I think the latest hour would probably be 8 o'clock at night. And on the medical general office use, we have a identified tenant for the daycare, and we're comfortable with that. The hours on the office medical use would likely not be weekends. I think some medical offices are open Saturday mornings, but that would be the extent of it. But no, normally it would be Monday to Friday.
So the answer is possibly yes, there are hours.
Only on a Saturday morning, but otherwise it would
which
be
is
Monday.
a weekend, so. I
You wanna
just
split
wanted to
hairs,
make
John,
clear
feel free.
because a lot of people are confused about the statements that are being made, whether there were hours on the weekend, so there may be.
I'll say it a third time. Monday to Friday plus Saturday morning. How about that? Is that
Okay.
clear enough?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Can we move on?
Can I move on? You know, we've been getting some comments from residents and some interesting things about being harmonious and compatible with surrounding residential uses. I'm not quite sure what that means. It sounds like it's somewhere in the code, conditional use requirements of section 130.01B.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually
touched on that.
in the intent of the PS2 district.
Yes.
That's
How
right.
is this harmonious
Because
can
we are
see,
entirely consistent with the
I
ordinance
know
that
you're
you
consistent,
drafted.
I know you're consistent, but harmonious,
It is, that's what it means.
if I could finish, harmonious is something that's not measurable. I don't know exactly what it means, but I agree that I think a daycare center is pretty harmonious with the residential surrounding use. And that's why I mentioned to have walkability from the Toll Brothers development, which the daycare center may be getting a lot of clients from. And by having a walkability, maybe it might eliminate some of the traffic. You're going to have 120 cars coming in at the same time, but we'll get to that when the traffic report is done.
I think what's important to note, just to pick up on that, is that, as I mentioned, these are small-scale buildings. So we're not talking about a large, big-box business or anything of that nature, a warehouse-type business. They're very small, individual. Also, the nature of the uses, these are uses that people within residential neighborhoods would seek out and use. So I think that the location of them is appropriate, and I think just the scale of the buildings themselves is harmonious with a residential neighborhood.
You done with your questions, John?
Yeah.
Okay. I had one or two or three. A couple of them are restatements of statements I think I heard you say. Well, the zoning went from 39, the impervious went from 39%, and now it's 30, so it meets requirement and does not, no longer needs a variance. As I understand it, that's because the office building was downsized.
Last August, when we submitted the zoning hearing board application for this property, we had sought zoning relief to increase the impervious surface allowance beyond the 30% maximum to 39%. When we got feedback that that was not going to be well received, we revised the plan, made the general office, medical office building smaller, reduced the parking, and complied. So the plan that's in front of you no longer seeks any variance from impervious surface. We are complying with that requirement. And we never pursued any further that zoning hearing board application. That is pending. We intend ultimately to withdraw it and pursue this plan that's in front of you this evening.
Okay.
Hope that clarifies that. But.
Yeah, I just wanted to restate it for emphasis.
Right.
Second one is the parking you moved originally was in the front of the building, and now it's in the behind the building, the medical office building.
There was some parking originally in the front of the building, but it has been reconfigured so that you can see it goes in between the two buildings, so it would be to the side of each building, and then the bulk of the parking is now behind.
Right. There was parking that is
Yes.
here previously. As a result of the planning commission discussion, it got moved out of the minimum 100-foot front yard. The only thing in the front yard now will be grass landscaping. There will be no other improvements, parking or anything. So that's all been pushed back.
So, and I'm glad you said it's 100 feet.
Your planner questioned whether or not
Right.
you were allowed to have parking in the front yard.
Right.
So in order to eliminate that uncertainty, we eliminated.
Right. And there's 100 feet there.
Yes.
Yes.
In the front. Now, you talk about what else is in that front yard. You're going to be carrying on the trail,
Yes.
the 8-foot trail.
Yes. We agreed to that. We agreed to extend the trail, sidewalk, whatever you want to characterize it. And there was also discussion at the meeting about would the applicant be willing to further extend the buffer that apparently the township received and extracted as part of the adjacent residential subdivision. We said we'd be willing to extend the buffer along our Durham Road frontage to make that consistent.
And how about landscaping along that buffer?
Yeah.
Could it be, I see there is some shown on your plan.
Yeah,
And that would match basically what Toll Brothers is doing on their side?
This was more for illustrative purposes, but our intention would be to employ whatever standard you apply to the toll project to extend that ornamental tree or whatever
Right.
mix of buffers across this frontage.
Okay.
Right.
I think I have just one more. In the parking field, will there be some buffering, landscape buffering in the parking field as well?
Sure, I mean, you have all of this around it, there's certain pockets of parking or landscaping within the parking area, and then you have all the rear will be open as well.
So
Yes.
the intention is that there would be landscape buffering there as well?
Yeah, yep.
Okay, I may have to come back. I had the other ones for the traffic,
Right.
so.
Any other questions, I'll have Mr. Heinrich come up.
Any other questions from the?
Oh, sorry. Is the daycare facility going to be open until 10 o'clock in the evening?
Say again?
The daycare facility, which one is going to be open till 10 o'clock? Did I read that right? None?
I don't think so, I thought we said 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. I thought is
Okay,
what we
thank you.
talked about.
Okay.
The copy I have does say 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., but the inclination is it?
Kevin, you remember that? I don't.
I think maybe 10 p.m. is contemplated, medical office, no.
But not the daycare.
Not daycare, no.
Right. I think 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. for the daycare is what I thought we talked about at the planning commission.
So but the 10 p.m. comes in maybe with the medical office building.
Dennis, I can't speak to that. I
Until
don't
you have a
think
tenant, you don't know.
I can't imagine the medical office being open until 10 p.m. at night, but
No, I can't either, but,
I don't know.
okay. Mr. Calabro?
Couple questions. Yeah, I guess my first question is just for a point of clarification. We all talk about Durham Road, and we all know what Durham Road is, but just for the public, we are speaking of 413, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, you had mentioned that this is both buildings are one story or
Correct.
one floor, but I noticed that they're approximately 35 feet in height. There is no second floor?
No.
Because I know that in some of our town structures, our maximum is 40 feet, and that could have three stories.
No.
Why is it so high for a one-story building?
I'm not sure that 35 is the proposed height. I think that would be the maximum proposed height for the district. Right.
Yeah, permitted is 35.
Yeah,
then
and I
says
think the arrow says
proposed is-
35 or less.
Yeah.
It's a one-story building, so that there's no
What would you propose a
misunderstanding.
one-story building to
Right,
be in
both.
height?
Both
What would
are
you
one-story
propose it to be in height?
Typically, buildings like this, commercial buildings like this might be 20, 25 at the most.
I hear someone in the back. Would they like to come up to the microphone?
Sure.
Okay, let's have somebody who's going to testify be sworn in, please.
I do. Kevin Riley, R-E-I-L-L-Y.
Come around here to this.
Mr. Riley, what is your position with the applicant?
I am a principal with the ownership firm that owns the property.
And Kevin, you've been actively involved from the outset of the project, right?
I have.
And you've heard the testimony that Mr. Kennedy has offered so far, and you've heard my responses and summaries as well, right?
Correct.
Anything that we've said to date inaccurate, or you want to amplify or expand upon?
Everything was accurate.
Okay. You've heard the question raised by Mr. Calabro about the height of the proposed buildings. Could you elaborate further on that?
Sure, I think there might be some confusion. The zoning district allows a maximum building height of 35 feet. We are committing to one-story tall buildings. They will both likely have flat roofs, so they'll probably be 10-foot tall inside, 2-foot tall truss, and then maybe a 4 or 5 foot tall parapet. So we're talking probably about 16 to 20-foot tall buildings. Okay. And this exhibit, if you want to add it as an exhibit, accurately depicts what we're contemplating at this time. The daycare is a known entity, and that is their building elevation. And the medical office, we contemplated that elevation to kind of match what the daycare is doing.
Thank you.
Mr. Stainer will mark that illustrative board that Mr. Riley just made reference to as Exhibit A4.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy.
Just a question, I don't know if this is, pertains to this right now, but this is for my own curiosity, is why is the child daycare center 10,000 and the medical 66? I would think it would be the reverse, or am I seeing something wrong here, or is there a reason?
The reason is that the daycare is a national daycare provider, and that's their footprint. That's their 10,000 square foot footprint to have 120 kids. The medical office is basically a function of the impervious coverage, and making that almost as large as we can in order to be under the 30% impervious coverage and be able to park it.
Okay. Now, being familiar with this property, and as I'm looking at the sketch plan, and I see that the dwelling, the existing dwelling on this would be to the right. Now, I always noticed as I passed by this after a large rainstorm, to the left becomes almost a standstill lake, a flood zone, so to speak. Has this been addressed? Because this is basically where you're going to be putting your proposed medical office building.
That's really a land development question.
Okay.
The site does drain from Durham Road to the back of the site. So if we have to fill that area a bit during our land development design, we will, and we will make sure that all of our drainage does go to the back, to the stormwater basin via underground pipes and swales.
Okay, so this will eliminate the possibility of future stormwater runoff that is just going to settle in that one particular situation.
Absolutely. We'll have to accept the runoff from Durham Road, Route 413 on our side.
Okay.
We'll have to accept that and take that back to our basin. So yeah, it will move all water to the back.
And when the time comes, I'm sure our engineers will be out there to test it.
Yeah, and they'll be reviewing the plans too when we go through land development.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
And the children will be coming with their boots on if it doesn't work.
I didn't hear that.
If there was too much water, the children would be coming in with their boots on.
The roofs.
Boots. I'm kidding. It's a joke.
A joke, okay.
A bad joke, apparently. Mr. has another question.
Yeah, the sketch plan is confusing me.
Okay.
I can't see it too well, excuse me, I'm an old guy, and the concept that you have, that you laid on the floor, is that the view from Durham Road?
It is, in a general way, yes.
In a general way, but
It's looking from Durham Road into the site.
but the daycare center has its narrower side facing Durham Road. This looks like the wide side is facing Durham Road. Which is it going to be?
I believe that this is the narrow side, and it goes deeper.
Oh, that would,
The building's 125 foot long and 80 foot wide.
and the other building, how wide is that?
It's 100 feet wide and 110 feet wide and 60 feet deep.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Okay,
Yes.
move on
Any
to
other
our,
questions?
No, we can't take questions now, sir. Excuse me, sir.
We'll get to public comment.
We can't take questions now. We have to proceed with the testimony. There'll be time for public comment.
I would propose to call Andreas Heinrich, who is our traffic consultant for the project. I have previously marked and distributed to the solicitor and the board exhibits A5 and A6. A5 is Mr. Heinrich's curriculum vitae, and A7 is a memorandum report dated today commenting upon trip generation analysis and the like, dealing with the proposed impact of this project on surrounding traffic, and particularly on Durham Road. Andy, if you would you identify yourself and your professional background for the board, please?
Certainly. Again, my name is Andy Heinrich. I'm a traffic engineer, self-employed. I am a licensed civil engineer in Pennsylvania. I am certified as a professional traffic operations engineer and a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering degree from Drexel University, and have been practicing over 45 years as a traffic engineer since 1991 as self-employed in my own firm.
Anyone have any questions about the professional credentials or qualifications of Mr. Heinrich? They're free to ask him now.
Board questions for Mr. Heinrich regarding his qualifications. Mr. Murphy, is he being offered as an expert in traffic planning?
He is.
Okay. Seeing no questions, he'll be accepted as such.
Thank you.
If I may, traffic engineering. As opposed
Apologize, Mr. Heinrich. Traffic engineering, correct.
Agreed. Thank you. Andy, you're familiar with the site?
Yes.
You were retained by the applicant over a year ago when they first started to give consideration to development scenarios for the property, right?
Yes.
And you had originally prepared, in anticipation of your testimony at the zoning hearing board last fall, a report that evaluated the traffic impact of the project as it was then constituted in accordance with normal or typical transportation engineering standards and impact on Durham Road and surrounding impacts on the roadways.
Yes.
And you've become aware more recently that the plan that you first were commissioned to study last fall has been downsized somewhat, and specifically the medical office / general office building has been reduced from its originally contemplated 10,000 square foot to 6,600, right?
Yes.
Okay. What I'd like you to do tonight is, having previously submitted Exhibit A6, if you could walk the board members in the audience through what you did in preparing the memorandum that's stated today and what your conclusions as depicted in the report show.
Certainly. The first thing we did was we estimated trip generation for the proposed development. Traffic engineers, and I'm sure you folks probably heard it referred to on other applications. Traffic engineers use a document entitled Trip Generation Manual, published by the Institute of Transportation Engineers. It's a universally accepted document for estimating traffic for a variety of different land uses. Using that document, in Table 1 of the exhibit, we provide the trip rates, the amount of traffic per student enrolled, or the amount of traffic per 1,000 square foot of building area in the case of the medical office building. And we were able to come up with an estimate of the amount of traffic on a daily basis over a 24-hour period during Monday through Friday. And during the 2 critical peak hours of a typical traffic day, when everybody's going to work and to school and so forth, picking a peak hour, the peak 60-minute period during the time period 7 to 9 a.m., and the peak 60-minute period in the afternoon between 4 p.m. and 6 p.m.
I noticed in Table 1 you made a couple of specific references. First, in the description of the project, you referred to it as a 6,600 square foot medical office building, right?
Yes.
You're aware that the application contemplates either a medical office use or a general office use?
Yes.
And would you explain for the board whether the analysis you did or the number of trips you've identified would change if it was a general office use, because I'm assuming you used the more intense use of the medical office use as opposed to a general office use in doing your study.
That is correct. A medical office building will generally generate more traffic than a typical professional office building. Kind of like a medical office building, medical office use, consider patients as customers. It's almost a cross between general office and retail commercial use, where the patients are acting as customers going to and from the use. So a medical office building will typically generate more traffic than just general office space.
So the study that you did was conservative by using the more strict or more traffic intensive of the two uses.
Well, if the medical office building is ultimately built, it's not the more conservative, it is the amount of traffic. But if you're just comparing those two land uses, yes, it's the more conservative land use.
And I noticed that you presumed here that the child daycare center use would accommodate 120 children, right?
Yes.
Okay, and that, as I understand it, and I assume you do too, that's the maximum allowable capacity of a building of that size as it would be licensed by the other regulatory agencies.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, if you would review the traffic volumes you used or assumed based on the ITE trip generation manual that you relied upon.
Well, one thing to point out first is daycare centers have a traffic component, a trip generation component that's called pass-by traffic. In other words, a parent gets children, puts them in the car in the morning, drives to the daycare center, drops the child off, and then proceeds to work or shopping or some other use. So there's two trips in one overall trip back and forth, and that parent would have used Durham Road in any event. If the daycare center doesn't come in, they're still traveling up and down Durham Road. So that's called pass-by traffic. They're on that road anyway, and so you're not adding traffic to the road, but you are adding turning movements in and out of the driveways. So if you deduct that, that component, which is, for our estimation, about 44% of the total traffic generated by the daycare center, the amount of traffic that we estimate in terms of total traffic is 442 trips per day, total inbound and outbound. In the morning peak hours, 71 trips, 43 in, 28 out. And in the afternoon peak hour, 28 in and 44 out, for a total of 72. I would also point out daycare centers have a third component of traffic, very similar to the pass-by component. It's called a diverted link trip. That's traffic that might be down on the bypass or some other nearby road. They're already traveling in the area, but they have to divert from their normal path to come up to Durham Road and turn in and out of the driveway. So again, that's not new traffic, but in the confined space of where our site is located, it's new to the driveway and the Durham Road in this area, so we did not discount for that component of the daycare center traffic.
Based on the plan that you've reviewed, I'm correct, am I not, that there is a proposed single point of access, ingress and egress off of Durham Road?
Yes.
Okay. And you have evaluated the adequacy of that single point of ingress and egress on Durham
Yes.
Road? Explain how, what factors go into your evaluation and what your conclusion would be as to its adequacy.
Well, as you know, Durham Road is a state highway, so based on worksheets provided by PennDOT, we evaluated the need for turning lanes at the driveway and found that both a separate left turn lane and a separate right turn deceleration lane is required or warranted for site access. Durham Road is already 3 lanes wide. There is a center left turn lane, so the left turn lane that is warranted for the driveway would simply mean restriping the road for that turning lane. But the right turn deceleration lane will require widening of Durham Road to provide that separate turning lane.
Much as a similar arrangement exists for ingress and egress of this building, right?
Correct.
On Durham Road.
Correct.
Be a separate left-hand turning lane in and a decel lane for southbound traffic wanting to turn right into the complex.
That's correct.
Okay.
And then evaluating the driveway configuration with the trip generation, and we've obtained traffic data from PennDOT's Traffic Information Repository website. We were able to evaluate how well or how poorly the driveway might work. I don't know if you recall other traffic engineers describing traffic engineers use a report card style grading system for various different highway facilities. Level of service, they're called. Level of service A is excellent with rather low traffic delay. Level of service F is very poor traffic conditions with volume exceeding capacity. Generally, traffic engineers designed for level of service D. Our evaluation of the driveway configuration with the PennDOT traffic data and our trip generation estimates, the driveway will function at level of service C or better. C, A, B, C.
Can I ask, is this the latest 2021? Is that the latest data?
It's the latest data available from PennDOT. Actually, there might have been more recent, but it was collected during COVID, so it's not valid.
A question that frequently comes up, and that is, with the introduction of these two new uses at that location, is there the likelihood that a warrant would exist for the installation of a traffic signal in front of this site or any other immediate site on either side of this property?
Certainly, the driveway will not warrant installation of a traffic signal. As far as other locations, if a signal is warranted somewhere else, it will not be because of the traffic generated by this site.
And not that anyone would rely upon it, but you've indicated that Durham Road is a state-owned and controlled highway, right?
Correct.
So that the improvements that you have suggested in your report that would be required, the separate left-hand turning lane in and the decel lane southbound turning right into the site, would all be subject to fully engineered plans to be submitted, reviewed, and approved by PennDOT, right?
Yes.
Okay, so any approval, even of the land development plans, would be subject to receipt of the PennDOT permit for those improvements or any other improvements that PennDOT might require.
That's correct.
Okay. I don't have, and lastly, I think based on your report, you would confirm that you believe this project in this location, as it's been described in the application, is suitable for the location and will not have a negative impact on access or highway traffic safety in this location.
That's correct.
Okay. I don't have any other questions for Mr. Heinrich.
Board members? Okay, good.
Board member questions for Mr. Heinrich, please.
Yeah, can you explain again about the left-hand turn? What is currently there? Is there, you said there were 3 lanes. What's currently there?
There is a middle left turn lane, so
The
one
middle
lane
left turn lane going into Delancey Court, is that it?
further down, yes, but in front of the site, it's 3 lanes wide, 1 lane in each direction, and a middle lane that's basically striped out with yellow lines.
It's not that much further down, but, so there'd be 2 left-hand turning lanes. So somebody coming north on Durham Road would have to get into the second left-hand turning lane. Beyond the left-hand turning lane that goes into Durham Road.
That's
Durham
correct.
Court.
That's correct.
Delancey Court, sorry. Excuse me?
You said going north, you would be making a left into Delancey going north.
No, but you have
The
to make a
left
left
going into the proposed
into the
driveway.
complex. You'd have to make a
Look on
left.
Google Earth, you can see it.
Right,
Little turn lane.
okay. I guess there's enough room to navigate without crashing into somebody else in the first lane. You mentioned the pass-by trips. I don't know how that's discounted, just because they were gonna go someplace else anyway. There's still traffic going in and out due to these people that may be going to Acme or something like that afterwards. Is that correct? They still go in and out? of the company.
I'm not sure I understand your question.
You have pass-by trips, 44%. You're
Yes.
discounting that as in the total of your traffic, aren't you?
In terms of new traffic added to the
In terms
road,
of new
yes.
traffic, you discounted that 208. You discounted those. Just because.
For daily, yes.
Just because they're going in and then they're leaving and going to Acme, which, you know, maybe they were going to Acme.
More likely, they're going to work during the morning and afternoon rush hours, but yes, your concept is correct.
Well, I don't know, it's just an odd way to eliminate traffic in your calculations, as far as.
They're not eliminating it, it's in there, and like I said, it's turning in and out of the driveways. So there's turning movements added at the driveway, but if you go upstream and downstream away from the site, that component of traffic has not increased traffic on Durham Road.
Are we concerned about what's upstream and downstream from the site, or at the site actually entering and leaving? What are we most concerned about?
Well, based on the size of the development, in my mind, we're mostly concerned about the way the driveway functions.
Okay. Would PennDOT ever require only a right-in and right-out? I've heard of that somewhere. Is that something that PennDOT sometimes requires, rather than these left turns?
Are you talking about restricting left turning movements?
Yes.
That's a potential recommendation from PennDOT in certain instances. Durham Road is not that kind of a road. Like I said, there is a center left turn lane to accommodate at least the left turns in, so there's no reason to prohibit left turn entering traffic. And if you did try to restrict left turning movements, where are they going to go? They're going to go upstream or downstream and do some U-turning or something of that nature. So what's the worst
that would be very
situation to have?
All right, thank you.
I have, I think, just one question this time. Although I would like to make the statement that I'm always amazed at how the traffic calculations are figured, and I always think they're going to be much higher than they are in reality, you know, when a traffic engineer looks at it. So I make that comment. My question is, we talked about how to get into the site. How do we get out of the site? Is there a designated left turn lane and a designated right turn lane to get out of the site?
On the driveway?
Yes.
No, it'll be one lane in and one lane out.
Okay. So.
Similar to the municipal building?
Yes.
When you come out of the municipal building back to
Right.
Durham Road, just for purposes of explanation, if you want to make a right on Durham Road and go south, you get into the right lane coming from the municipal building. If you want to make a left on 413 and go north, you get into the left lane. That's the...
But for I'm sorry, the proposed driveway just has one lane in, one lane out. All left and right turning movements are in the
Oh, I see, okay.
same lane
So,
to
okay.
leave the site.
So there's not two lanes coming out that you can get in a left turn?
When I said two lanes, I meant one lane in, one
Okay.
lane out.
Okay. You clear on that, Dennis?
Yes, if, in order to get a highway occupancy permit from PennDOT, I don't know if they mess with the driveway, but could they require you to do a designated left turn and designated right turn?
It's possible, but I would tell you that in most cases, if not deemed necessary and for some specific reason, they would be against that, because if you have two cars coming out in two separate side-by-side lanes, they tend to block each other's sight distance.
They do.
So they prefer to have, if you don't need for capacity or safety or whatever other reason, and so far I don't see any of those issues coming to play, they would prefer a single exit lane for traffic of this nature.
What would be the typical queuing that would happen, given these rates?
In the driveway or on the street?
In the driveway.
Typically, less than a car length.
Really?
Not, the 95th percentile queue is less than a car length.
Wow, okay. You're the professional. Who else has questions? Mr. Calabro?
Yes, sir. Just to piggyback on what Mr. Fisher was talking about in regards to the exit, how wide is the driveway right now?
I don't know exactly whether it's 24 or 28 feet. Have we gotten the driveway width? For my purposes, all I need to know is one lane in and out. 24 feet.
I mean, it looks like according to this plan, there is some additional spacing to either side of that driveway. Why wouldn't you put a left-hand turn? Because you have a possibility of backup. If, say, for instance, you have 5, 6 cars that want to turn left, they're preventing the person turning right because now you do not have ample turn lanes in that situation. So why wouldn't you contemplate putting a left-hand turn coming out?
As I indicated, from the results of the analysis, it's not deemed necessary for capacity or safety. And as I said before, that having separate lanes side by side, cars can block each other's sight distance. So that is a negative aspect in terms of safety. So if you don't need it, you don't provide it.
Okay. Well, I mean, this particular property is in a close proximity to Newtown Grant, which has 1,751 homes, which that's an awful lot of kids, that if they wanted to get out of this property and turn left, and there's a few cars that want to turn right, you're backing up a few parents that want to get to their home, but they can't because you inconvenience them without a left-hand turn lane.
Inconvenience is not necessarily a bad thing.
Well,
It slows traffic.
until you're behind those cars. Then when you're inconvenienced,
And anytime you get to a stop sign, you'll get that.
Well, yeah, but
that
still, this
situation.
is the time to make it viable not to be inconvenient. But you're telling me it's not doable.
I didn't say it's not doable. I
Well,
said it's not recommended.
you're technically speaking for the developer saying, and I guess the developer doesn't want a left-hand turn coming out of here either.
I don't know that for sure, one way or the other.
Okay, we'll just assume, we'll just take that assumption as they don't want a left-hand turn lane coming out, and they want to inconvenience the people coming out of that daycare center.
Well,
You don't have to, that's not a question for you to answer, I'm just making a
If you
statement.
have 5 left
What is
turning
morning peak hour? You have morning peak hour here, but you don't tell us the time. What is the time of the morning peak hour?
It can vary during the morning peak, during
So
the
it's
morning
just a
peak
guesstimate,
period.
so you're just throwing numbers
No,
up
it's
in the
the
air.
highest 60 minutes.
This means nothing. Why don't you tell us?
Hold on a second.
You're the expert, and you're telling me that you can't pinpoint what a morning peak hour is.
It's not.
What about an
it's
afternoon?
not
What about an
germane- it's
afternoon
not-
peak hour?
It's not germane to the analysis, other than to know that it's.
So
the
your
peak
information
60-minute period.
is kind of useless right now.
That's
You're
not correct.
not telling me anything. You're
resent-
telling me
I
that
resent
you
sir.
don't know. You're telling
Sir,
me you
I
don't.
resent that.
I
The
don't
morning
care.
peak hour is
Honestly-
7 a.m. to 9 a.m.
Honestly, my friend,
The
I
afternoon
don't care
peak
if
hour is
I'm
5
offending
p.m.
you
to-
because you're here to prove something and you can't.
I just did.
No, you didn't. Tell me the hours.
7 a.m. to 8 a.m.
Okay.
5 p.m. to 6 p.m.
Okay, now let's look at these outdated, trip-generated figures that you have from 4 years ago. Now, when I look at 5 a.m. all the way down to 10 p.m., that's a heck of a lot of volume. 554, 502. At 2 p.m., 688. But I guess they're not considered peak, according to you.
The 2 peak hours that I told you, Durham Road carries between
listen,
1,300 and...
I hear
You
you.
keep
I hear you.
interrupting my answers.
Well, I'm the one asking the questions. Now, I've listened to a lot of traffic engineers, and they always seem to pad the figures the way that they want them to be. But when I look at the numbers of these, the volume coming in here, again, 5 p.m., which is a peak time for anyone, 775 trips. 7 a.m., when people are going to be dropping off their little children to the daycare center, 558. Then if you even go down to 6 p.m., when this supposed, I mean, I do have here that it's open from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., but I guess that's, and let's reiterate Mr. Murphy's mentioning that they are going to be open on weekends, okay? So let's not discount the weekends. 5 p.m., 775. 6 p.m., 700. Even if they go to 9 p.m., that's 300. So, I mean, that's a lot of trip generation, of which nobody can make a left-hand turn coming out of that development. I mean, I just find, again, when you want to make the numbers work, you do, but they just don't jive to the times. And to the times meaning the time periods. So I just don't, I don't know, I just don't see your figures to be as accurate as you depict them to be. And, you know, that's just my perception. I think your numbers are kind of deceptive.
I would just say, why are you using numbers from during COVID when we know that people are staying home? So that's
No, when you asked that question, there's more recent data, but it was taken during COVID and we didn't use it. That's why the date of 2021, that was pre-COVID.
2021 was
Or
not
20
pre-COVID.
whatever the
No,
date was
that
on
was
it.
right in the middle of COVID.
No, it was before,
No.
just,
No?
COVID was 2020.
Yes. So that's inaccurate right there. Also, I know the problems getting in and out of the neighborhood and this municipal complex. And so getting out and in of this new area, this is going to make it even harder. So this data needs to be updated as far as I'm concerned. This is not indicative of what is going on now
let
in
me
2024.
clarify. I was confusing with another job in terms of the dates. The 9/21 traffic count data, that was deemed accurate by PennDOT in a strike-off letter that they allowed traffic data, and it's their data, so that's why we used it.
I don't see that anywhere, so I see what this is listing, and then I hear that you're saying there's other data, but it doesn't jive, so I'm confused.
Well, that's the data of the traffic traveling back and forth on Durham Road. Yeah, so.
In 2021,
Correct.
during COVID, when
No, this was after COVID had died out, and as I said, PennDOT deemed these traffic counts to be accurate.
That's not right.
We have to get a permit from PennDOT, so I'm using their data.
Throes of COVID where
No.
everybody was staying home, not going to the office. So I dispute that.
Any other questions from the board? Mr. Solicitor?
Yeah, any other witnesses, Mr. Murphy?
I have no other witnesses. Just to be clear, the issue of is there or will there be a left turn in or out is all subject to future design, review, and approval by this township and by PennDOT. If ultimately it is recommended that we provide a multiple lane turn in and out of this site, we are happy to do it. Tonight, the issue is the use for the property, not the plan itself. That's so we're all clear. It's a conditional use application, and to dispel any uncomfortableness, we will provide whatever your consultants and experts, as well as PennDOT says, about adding or not additional further movements to make it better. That's really the bottom line. So, as long as we're clear about that, I don't have any other additional.
Mr. Riley can't answer that question right now?
What?
Mr. Riley can't answer that question
Yeah,
if
he
there
can
was?
answer
You agree, would you agree to put a left-hand turn lane in there?
Yes, absolutely.
Can you come up to the microphone and say
Well,
that?
hold on. Let me just be clear. Let's be clear. Mr. Calabro, are you asking him to do it no matter what? Or are you saying, if PennDOT requires it, will you do it? There's two different questions.
I'm asking as a responsible developer, would he be agreeable, whether PennDOT said it or not, to put a left-hand turn lane there?
I understand Phil's question, Dave. I appreciate your effort to clarify it, but let's put the issue to rest. Kevin, please answer directly Mr. Calabro's question.
We are willing to provide a left-hand turn lane out as long as PennDOT and/or Newtown Township doesn't restrict that. So if PennDOT says that we can't do a left-hand turn lane out, then we can't do it. But we're willing to do it.
Okay.
Okay.
No, well, no, it's not okay, but I understand your answer.
You understand my?
I understand it.
I have to be able to secure the permit from PennDOT.
I got you, okay.
Okay. We're talking about a left-hand turn lane out.
Yep.
The access drive. We're not talking about Durham Road at all.
We are already
Okay.
committed to that, but we're talking about on
Right.
our property or at the throat of our property as we enter and exit 413.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay. I have one question stemming from the Planning Commission's minutes and recommended approval of this. There shall be a maximum of 20 employees for the daycare center, but the office uses should be clarified with regard to number of employees and shifts. Is that possible to do now?
It is not possible tonight to do because we don't have secured tenants, either medical or general office for that space. We committed to that for the daycare because we do have such a commitment.
Okay. And noise control was an issue discussed by the Planning Commission. The applicant must advise how the noise generated by the outdoor play of children at the daycare center will be ameliorated so as not to disturb the other businesses and residents in the immediate vicinity.
We just said we would comply with any and all the noise regulations, et cetera. I don't know if you have a special ordinance that prohibits kids from laughing or whatever, but if you do, we'll comply. But political correctness run amok, but if there's such an ordinance, we'll comply.
Okay.
As long as they're not barking dogs, because we did not like that.
Finally, there was a discussion regarding screening and buffering, and I think I heard testimony regarding that fact. Can we clarify exactly where screening and buffering is going to occur?
Well, I don't know the specifics of the Toll Brothers plan that's been approved. We were asked if we would be willing to extend whatever that type of buffer, its depth, the nature of the planning, so that it's consistent across the Durham Road frontage of this property, and we said we would do that. I don't know that there's an issue about buffering the other perimeter of the site. I mean, in large measure, we're not disturbing all the existing buffer, but if part of the land development process triggers the need to strengthen those existing buffers, we'll do that as well.
Okay, those were all the questions that I had. Any other questions from the board?
You're not talking about guardrails as a buffer, are you?
No, no. Plantings, vegetative buffer.
Landscaping.
Oh, I didn't say guardrails.
No more guardrails, please.
Now, this is green stuff we're doing, right?
Okay. With no further questions from the board for the applicant, Mr. Calabro?
Solicitor, just
I
one
move my
question.
exhibits, Mr. Sander.
They'll be accepted.
In regards to the rear of the property, is that something to be discussed later?
The rear of the property?
Yeah, there's a lot of open land in the rear of the property, and I hate to think that that would be developed one day, is there any kind of restriction we could put on that property to the rear going, I don't know if that's south, I'm just saying to the rear of the
Right,
property?
I understand.
Would not be developed? Sure, we'll do Can we do the deed restriction or something?
Yeah,
And something to prohibit if the property was sold, that the new buyer couldn't develop that also? Okay, yeah, right there, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay. No further questions?
We're ready to go.
We're ready to open it up to public comment. At this time, is there anybody here who wishes to make public comment on the application? Sir, right here in the front row. Yes, sir.
In the blue shirt.
Yes, please. Yes, sir. Could you go to the podium, make sure that microphone is turned on, and make your statement to the board, please?
And please state your name.
Yep, we're going to need your name and address for the record.
My name is Stephen Keeley.
Can you spell your last name?
K-I-E-L-E-Y.
Point of order.
Point of order. Mr. Solicitor, shouldn't you make a motion first, and we second it, and then it goes to
Not in the conditional use setting, because the public comment, you may want to consider the public comment when making your motion in the first place.
Okay,
So we'll
thank
let public comment go, then we'll close the hearing and we'll deliberate and ultimately make a motion.
All right, thanks for that clarification.
And Mr. Kiley, K-I-E-L-E-Y,
That's right.
and first name is?
Stephen with a V.
V, okay, thank you. And your address?
63 Elfreth's Court, Delancey Court.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I've been made aware that the supervisors have each gotten a letter from one of our residents, Frank, excuse me, Frank McCarron. And don't worry, I'm not going to read the letter because it's a long one. But it's a very detailed, well-written, and I think it's deserving of a good inspection. I'm only going to just hit a couple of the highlights so that everybody is aware of some of the more salient points here. We believe that the application is somewhat misleading, inaccurate, and not complete. It's going to be something that's affecting both Delancey Court, especially Newtown Grant, which you mentioned, and the municipality itself, because it's going to impact on the use of the municipal drive, which is the access point for emergency vehicles, obviously. The attempt to measure and address the impact on traffic, the applicant merely states that it will have little or no adverse effect on traffic or highway safety on the adjacent roads. We disagree. The applicant fails to address how parents dropping off their children will enter and exit the property. Just what we've been talking about here, left turns, no access at certain times. Also, the applicant has made no attempt to comply with the requirements of Section 1301 of Article 8 of the Newtown Area Jointure Legal Code. That's in our opinion. The 2008 report by the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission on Durham Road traffic calls for all future development to have right turn in, right turn out only. No left turn out. This is where I think it's going to have a major impact if PennDOT decides that it will be enforced here. Because the people that leave the daycare center will have to make a right turn. And they're going to go right down to the next area to make a U-turn to go north. And they're going to block the traffic coming out of the municipal building as well as Delancey Court. It's going to be worse in the other direction if they can't make a left turn to go into the access of the
daycare center, because they'll have to go all the way up to North Drive, right into Newtown Grant, and make a U-turn on that road inside the property of Newtown Grant to come south on Durham Road, to make a right turn into the property. I think that's impractical, honestly. Now, the conditional use has certain standards that are not being met either. And one of them, which was mentioned before, is the uses and location must be suitable in terms of effects on highway traffic and safety, with arrangement for access that is adequate to protect streets from undue congestion and hazard. And if those conditions can't be met, our understanding is that the board, by law, can't approve the conditional use. So we have a couple of recommendations. Maybe the restriction should be put on the number of buildings, maybe only one building instead of two. Cut down on the traffic. Secondly, notices should be sent out to all residents within 500 feet of the proposed development, which haven't been done. Thirdly, a traffic study should be performed, an impartial traffic study, okay? Secondly, or actually thirdly, a traffic study, and PennDOT also is fourth item. PennDOT should be consulted to determine whether they are going to enforce the right turn only, which was put forth by the planning board in 2008. In summary, we think the application as it's been presented should be rejected and be sent back for further review and remediation. Any questions? Any questions from here?
Right. There'll be other folks can comment as well.
I'm sorry?
I say other folks will be able to comment as well. So when you ask for questions, they'll be, we don't do a give and take.
Okay. If having none, I'll thank you for your attention.
Yes, thank you. Oh, you guys can choose who goes next. Please state your name and.
Yeah, Bill DeSalvo, D-I, capital S-A-L-V-O. I work, I actually live here across the street at the Delancey Court. At the peak times of the day, trying to get out, whether you're going right or left, is very difficult because of all the traffic. And then if you add the traffic with this project, and then later, coming up in a couple of years, you have the Toll Brother project a little north of here. You're talking way more traffic than was determined before. And the other thing is that we have turning lanes coming in and out of Delancey Court. How does that play into the turning lanes of this project? Just a couple hundred yards. It just I can't comprehend it, how that can be done. So it's a big safety problem trying to get traffic in and out of these three different things going on. You got the township, then you have Delancey Court, this project, and later on we have Toll Brother. There's just too much traffic and congestion coming in and out. It's going to be dangerous. People are going to get killed. This project's got to be killed.
Thank you.
Any additional public comment? Okay, seeing
There
none.
is.
I apologize.
Mr. Cooper.
Bradley Cooper, Newtown Grant resident since 1999. And I listened to some of the testimony from the applicant and their engineers and different people. And I know some of them don't live in the area, but Durham Road isn't just used for whatever they want to say the traffic study is that PennDOT wants to give them. People use Durham Road to get to Doylestown, to get to New Hope when there's events going on, so people use it for more other reasons. Most people that use Durham Road, in my opinion, are either to go to the pizza place, Vincent's, to go to Rosebank Winery, or they go to their home to live. They don't drive down that way just to drive down that way. Most people use like Swamp Road or the bypass more to get to where they need to get to or whatever. So this is going to add way more traffic. It's going to be so much more noise. And a lot of the people that live in Newtown Grant and the surrounding areas are older citizens who, you know, stay home a lot more, aren't out traveling or going places like myself. So this is going to create, you know, some issue and some noise and some, you know, burden on them that they're going to have to deal with. And whenever we get projects like this that, you know, people oppose or have issues with, we have tons of people that show up. And that should be an indication of how many people don't want these type of projects in Newtown Grant or surrounding areas, you know, like Toll Brothers or the Wawa. People show up because they're concerned about the overdevelopment that we're getting in Newtown and how the green spaces are being turned into buildings and homes and every inch of it. And the roads that we have aren't indicative to the buildings and the businesses that we're trying to put on them. We're trying to take these roads that were built in the 40s and 50s and turn them into super highways. And then by doing that, you have to take away people's lands and their driveways to make it indicative to be able to fit these businesses that want to go into these areas. So I think that these type of things need to be shot down, and we need to keep the area open and try to keep what we have now, which is open green land and spaces where we can all enjoy and, you know, not have to worry about noise ordinances and is this going to fit this? Are we going to tweak this to do that? Because then it just makes the projects and makes the area, you know, more of a city. And if I wanted to live in a city, I'd go move to Philly. People move to suburbs to get away from the city life, and it seems like we're trying to add city life into Newtown when it can't fit properly or most people don't want it. So I hope you guys deny this and try to find better uses for the area. Thank you.
John DeApril, Newtown Grant, biggest and the best. A lot of comments and a lot of BS. I don't know why you guys are giving them such a hard time. I mean, you let Toll Brothers come in like a highway, 90 miles an hour. You gave them it because they gave you a bribe. These guys, I guess, didn't give you a bribe. Yeah, bribe. Over $1 million worth of real estate. How many acres in the back? They gave it to the township. I call it a bribe. My personal opinion, you could call it a gift. You call it anything you want. It was a bribe. These guys didn't give you nothing, I guess. I mean, you're talking about traffic. You got a light on Wrights Road. You got a light on North Drive. 29 years I've been living it, long before they thought about the Lancey place. You know, like I said, you guys let Toll Brothers in. There's a resident there now. There's a house there now. You know, didn't complain about that. Yeah, all right, it's going to add more traffic, going to add a much-needed daycare center. If you ever tried to get kids in the daycare around here, you'd know it's needed. You know, you're talking about right turn, right lane. I said when I first moved up here that one day, might not be alive by then, but 413 will be 2 lanes each way. I mean, if you look, a lot of the places, they have the room to put it. I don't know about what the easements are and all that stuff. I don't know, get into that. But there is room to make it wider. And I believe one day they will do it. And a few people agreed with me when I brought it up. But like I said, you let Toll Brothers come in, you know, right and left turn lanes. I mean, you got that on South Drive in Newtown Grant. You got that on Hemlock to get into Stokeville. You got that on Marigold to get into Eagle Road. What are you talking about? You know, you're forcing them to do landscape. What do you have there now? There's a building there now. You shouldn't have to if they don't want to, have them put any more landscape there. There's a building there now. It's been there long before Newtown Grant. You talk about traffic, you know, people from Philly or New York laugh about the people complaining about traffic in Newtown because those places is so bad. And the Newtown people complain about traffic. Come on. You know, you said you let Toll Brothers in. I tried to get them to stop them from coming through North Drive. You guys push that right through. Nah, they won't do that. Yes, they will. So the traffic is going to get worse no matter what. No matter you allow this project to come, because there will be other projects in other places. Wait till something happens to Wrightstown, their board, Chester retires or something happens to them, and they put sewage in Wrightstown. You're going to see a building boom in Wrightstown. And that will happen. I might not be around then, but it's going to happen sooner or later. And, you know, traffic, I mean, you're going to get traffic. A lot of people, this is a well, nice area to live in, and people are going to want to move here, and they're going to build and build and build. You know, my friend Bradley over here, I mean, he keeps on mentioning, update your ordinances. They're so old. You're zoning, and you allow a lot of this stuff to come in. You got a law firm that messes up legal documents and stuff like that. Why? Because they're all Democrat? Thanks you.
Any other comments this evening?
Any additional public comment? Okay, seeing none, Mr. Murphy, would you like to summarize, please?
Sure. Our master is your ordinance. All this other commentary is, in my view, not relevant. What is relevant is what your ordinance that you wrote and we have to live with says. We have complied with your ordinance, both in terms of the uses that this district allows and all the criteria that accompany those uses in this district. That's it. That should be the beginning and end of this conversation and analysis. The issue, site-specific issues about access, buffering, sidewalks, all of those things which we have committed to are going to get fleshed out further if and when we reach the land development stage. The conditional use deals with the use, not the plan. However, we've already committed to that, but I think we're getting way ahead of ourselves. I believe we have met each and every objective and subjective criteria to qualify both the daycare and the medical/general office use as authorized, allowable, conditional uses in the PS2 zoning district. Period. End of conversation. And I think that's where we're at. You may not like it. I understand that, but our master is your ordinance. We have to follow your ordinance. You do too. So I think that's where it stops. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. At this point, does the board wish to deliberate on this matter? Because frankly, I'm not sure what motion I would frame right now. Let's go off the record. I'm not sure what motion I would frame right now based on observing the questions and comments that the board has heard. So it is allowed that the board sitting in a quasi-judicial manner, hearing a conditional use, can deliberate in private on this and then come out and make a motion much like the zoning hearing board does. I'd recommend that if we could adjourn to the conference room and talk about it?
I'd be okay with that.
I'd be okay with that.
Mr. Chairman? Yep.
We call recess or? Recess for.
Okay, we're back on the record. Let the record reflect that the board deliberated on this matter and has asked me to frame a motion for the board's consideration. The motion would be as follows. It will be a motion to grant the application of Durham Investment LP for a conditional use to operate a daycare facility, use C10, in a 10,000 square foot building, and both a medical office, use D2, and general office, use D1, in a 6,600 square foot building, both on a 4.49 acre parcel zoned PS2 Professional Services District at 413 Durham Road with 85 parking spaces, handicap, accessible places, loading areas, and trash dumpsters as required. The application is granted subject to the applicant's compliance with the following conditions. 1, the applicant shall comply with the CKS engineer's review letter dated February 23rd, 2024. 2, the applicant shall submit architectural renderings for approval by the Board of Supervisors. 3, there shall be a maximum of 20 employees for the daycare center. 4, the hours of operation shall be Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 8 p.m., plus Saturday mornings only for all uses with no other weekend hours. 5, no hazardous, flammable, or explosive materials are to be stored or used in either building. A plan for storage and disposal of medical gases, medical waste, and/or hazardous waste disposal must be provided to and approved by the Board of Supervisors. 6, deliveries. A plan for deliveries, including size of vehicles, days and times of deliveries, must be submitted to and approved by the township before the commencement of operation of either building. Areas for dropping off and picking up children must be identified on the plan of the daycare center, and both buildings shall provide separate loading areas. 7, no noxious or hazardous impacts may be generated by the operations in either building. Should this change, the applicant and/or the management of those buildings must notify the township of the nature of these impacts and how they will be safely controlled while on site. Next condition, I'm losing the numbers. The applicant shall comply with all noise regulations applicable to the proposed uses. Next condition, the applicant shall extend the buffer erected by the Toll Brothers development along the full frontage of the property along Durham Road, and shall install a trail along Durham Road frontage and install sidewalks leading from the buildings to the trail, subject to the approval of the township engineer. Next condition, the plan must comply with the Americans with Disabilities Act and the equivalent statutes of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Next condition, all fees and costs associated with this plan and owed to the township must be paid in full prior to the issuance of any certificates of occupancy. Next condition, the applicant will install a left-hand turn lane out of the development as long as PennDOT, as either PennDOT or the township doesn't prohibit or restrict the construction and installation of that left-hand turn lane. Next condition, the applicant, prior to occupancy, shall record a deed restriction against future subdivision and land development of the property. Next condition, the applicant shall obtain all required permits and approvals for the uses, including final unappealable land development approval. And finally, the development and the uses shall be consistent with the evidence and testimony presented to the Board of Supervisors in this hearing. Is there such, before we ask the applicant if that's acceptable, is there such a motion?
Is there a motion? Have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second it.
There's a motion and a second.
Mr. Murphy, that motion's been made and seconded. Are the conditions agreeable to the applicant?
They are, with one comment, Dave. The plan shows 84 spaces, not 85.
85, got it. We will-
Otherwise, yes, the conditions outlined by you in the motion are acceptable to the applicant.
Thank you. The motion can remain.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very good.
They will provide 84 parking spaces as depicted on the plans.
Is there any more discussion from the board?
I just have one question for the solicitor. If you could explain, moving forward, what the process will be so that the public understands what we're doing tonight and what's going to go into the future.
Certainly, Mr. Calabro. This is just step one for the applicant in this case. This conditional use hearing this evening, and if the board approves the motion, will allow the applicant to use the property for a daycare center and the mixed office building as presented on this plan. It will not, however, allow them to go out and put a shovel in the ground and develop the property. They will have to go through what's called land development approval, and that will entail submitting all the reports required by the township subdivision and land development ordinance. Everything will be reviewed, including the plans, by the township engineer and township planner and other experts, township traffic engineer. So they will have to come back to this board ultimately, first go to the planning commission and then come back to this board for land development approval before they can do anything on the property.
Thank you. I didn't get that. Any further questions from the public?
No, actually, no, we've closed the public comment on that. The motion is before the board and seconded. It'd be appropriate to call the question.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, public comment has already been made. You can ask the question after the motion is acted on.
So, I have a motion and a second. I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion as read by the solicitor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. Motion carries 4 to 1.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And your question? Sure.
No, this is off the record.
Off the record.
Hearing is closed. Thank you.
The question I have is, if I understand correctly, this is contingent on PennDOT's determination of the traffic laws, whether a left-hand turn is permitted, whether right-hand turns only. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Fine. Thank you.
Yeah, the applicant will have to obtain a highway occupancy permit from PennDOT. That's the name of the permit to put the driveway out onto Durham Road, which is a state road. They'll have to file all of the documentation and plans required by PennDOT and the township to obtain that permit.
Okay, that's good. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. All right, that brings us to there's no land development this evening. We do have reports of officials, and we have a brief engineer's report. Homewood Suites escrow release. Mr. Kandari?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would request that you just refer to the CKS engineers letter dated March 27th, 2024, signed by Michelle A. Fountain, that recommends release of all the remaining construction, inspection, and maintenance bond period securities to be returned to the developer after all outstanding invoices are paid.
So we have.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions from the board? And this is the end of the money. is the way I read it. There's no outstanding funds in escrow. Any other comments from the board? Seeing, do we have a motion and a second? I'll call the question. All those in favor of this escrow release, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. I'm sorry. Anything else from Mr. Kandari?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Solicitor has...
No report, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Report this evening. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. General fund balance this evening is $5,244,426. Plan expiration is before the board with no action required. This evening we have Chief Hearn to give his monthly chief's report. Evening, Chief.
Good evening, board members. March 24 police report, we documented 2,415 calls for service, logged over 24,000 miles on our patrol fleet. March was a busy month for arrests. We had 23 arrests, some of which included a burglary, 2 for robbery, theft, 5 narcotics possessions, 2 assaults, a couple forgeries, and 5 DUIs. Investigations, there were 17 new cases referred to detectives for investigations. There were 53 traffic crashes, 160 citations issued, and 222 warnings issued. Our truck enforcement details resulted in 25 inspections for the month of March, resulting in 3 citations and 10 warnings. March, we had a busy month, like I said, and on 3/4, we had a SWAT activation on Street Road in Upper Southampton, which we assisted at, which was successfully resolved. On 3/16, our personnel was also deployed to assist Falls Township for their triple homicide and carjackings that they had that particular day. The following morning, at 6:56 a.m. on 3/17, we had our own SWAT activation at the Headley Trace Development, which was also successfully resolved. On 3/22, there was a bus fire on Penns Park Road where 36 students were successfully evacuated from a school bus. The fire was as a result of a mechanical failure with the bus. And on 3/24, there was an auto pedestrian struck at the shopping center involving an elderly driver where she struck her husband while trying to park the car. Public service announcements. Fraud is increasing. Please remember, mail your checks inside the post office, not in the mailbox freestanding or at your home residence mailbox. Crews are actually working in mailboxes to steal your checks. Do not get out your information to people you do not know, including unsolicited phone calls. The law enforcement, courts, and utilities will not call you and ask you for that particular information. DEA drug take-back is April 27th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. outside this building. Newtown Business Expo is on April 30th from 4 to 7 at Rafters. Our police department will be present. And Newtown PD's Cars, Cops, and Coffee event on May 4th from 8:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. So stop by and meet your police officers. Be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for the chief?
I have a question, Chief. This weekend coming up, we're going to have a big event here in Newtown. And what is our part in the preparations, and what's our plan for that? What's your part exactly?
Well, I'm not going to go into detail pertaining to my operational plan for the event, but it is a high-profile dignitary event coming to Newtown Township. We're required to work along with Secret Service because it is a national security event to make sure there's a safe passage and an operational plan in place to handle any hazards which may occur.
Is that going to be a traffic disturbance on, like the bypass?
It'll be a brief closure when the motorcade is moving.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for the chief?
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have
Yes.
two other items under my report for the board's consideration. First of which is the authorization to execute an agreement with law enforcement and accreditation services. The sergeant that is in charge of the accreditation reporting and procedures is going to retire in the near future. We've obtained a proposal from Law Enforcement Accreditation Services in the amount of $12,000 annually. We do have a line item under the contracted services in the police for $12,000 for the watch guard, warranties for the in-car cameras that we will not be using moving forward. So there is a void there that this fills that gap. So the appropriate motion is authorization to execute the agreement with Law Enforcement Accreditation Services accordingly.
So we're just kind of switching out
Yes.
one line item for the other. Do you have a motion for that?
So moved.
Second? I'll second it. A motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion from the board?
I only have a question. Why can't another officer be trained to do this rather than hiring an outside consulting? I'm assuming the officer who has been doing this has done a good job.
Yeah, yes, he's done an excellent job. The reason why we're bringing in an outside agency is because we're at a sort of a minor deficiency in staffing at the moment. So we're trying to backfill for promotions. We're trying to bring on new officers that we can't fill the spots. So rather than dedicating another officer, which is $150-some thousand a year roughly, including benefits, we're trying to onboard this company to do all the legwork.
You telling me that officer, this was 100% of his job?
No, it's not 100% of his job.
What percentage of his job was it?
Chief?
Current officer that is my accreditation manager, probably spends about 80% of his career or his job function right now doing policies, procedures, planning, scheduling, and numerous hosts of job functions. 20% is spent on the street. Right now, it's a cost effectiveness for the township to hire this agency rather than bringing another officer off the street and dedicate this officer to that particular function only. It's the cost factor for this accredited agency. Well, I'm still going to have a point of contact in-house. He just won't be full-time. They'll be more dedicated to doing other functions within the police department that is a better cost effectiveness for our department operations.
Okay, I didn't understand it was a real time-consuming
Yeah, it's
job.
very time-consuming.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions about this? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of authorizing the manager to execute the agreement with Law Enforcement Accreditation Services, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Final item under our report, Mr. Chairman, is the authorization to purchase 2 mowers. We had allocated a total of $32,000 under the capital plan. Public Works Director has gotten a quote for $23,682 and change from the vendor. So the appropriate motion would be authorization to approve the purchase of 2 mowers in the amount of $23,682.66 through co-stars from the capital fund.
So moved.
Motion, do we have a second? Second. Here, a motion and a second. Any further discussion about the purchase of the mowers?
Are these gas-powered
Yes.
mowers? Is there any plan to transition in the future from gas?
Absolutely, if the technology evolves in that
So
manner,
that's
yes.
the problem.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the, I do like seeing that it's under budget by $8,000 plus. Seeing no other discussion, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the consideration to approve the purchase of 2 mowers from CoStars for $23,682.66, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That concludes our report.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Mr. Secretary Treasurer, we have some bills to pay and some minutes.
Well, first, I'd like to make a motion to approve the March 27, 2024 minutes.
We have a motion, that was the motion, you're the second. Any discussion from the board? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of approving the minutes from March 27th, 2024, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Bills list.
Okay, I move that we pay our April 10, 2024 bills totaling $463,340.48.
There's a motion. Do we have a second? I'll second it. A motion and a second. Do we have any questions about the bills?
I have a couple of questions. There was, on page 3, there was a total charge of about $1,693 to replace a street light. I'm not quite sure what that entails. Was it it wasn't an LED light, was it?
I don't have that specific repair in front of me, so I'll have to get back to you on that.
Yeah, I'm just curious if it was just like a light in a development where there are several other lights on a less traveled road. Aren't we going to be replacing all these with LEDs? And I wouldn't like to see spending money on something that's going to be replaced. But in any case, the other question I had to do with TD card services on page 10. There's a few monthly Zoom charges of $79.95, and 2 or 3 of them were canceled, but then there was one still left over. So what you're saying here is that we pay $79.95 per month on having a Zoom account?
Yes.
And yet, we cannot use that account?
Yet.
Excuse me?
Yet.
Well, I know that maybe the Planning Commission, the Human Relations Commission, and maybe others wanted to be able to have...
Mr. Solicitor, could you answer Mr. Mack's question, please?
Mr. Mack, could you state the question concisely?
Can the, like, let's say the Human Relations Commission has 5 members, or I think it's 5 right now, 4 show up, they have a majority present.
A quorum present.
A quorum. Can they use Zoom so that the 5th member
Yes,
can...
the 5th member can participate remotely.
Okay.
Yes, by telephone, by Zoom, as long as the member that's not present can hear and be heard.
Well,
that's acceptable.
That's what Zoom is all about.
Yes.
And I note that maybe the Planning Commission also occasionally might need to do that, as long as they have
a
quorum
live
present.
quorum, correct.
Okay, that's good to know. So anyway, I made the motion to pay that bill, and it was seconded.
Yes. There's a motion and a second. Any other further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of paying our bills as listed on the April 10th bills list, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 4 to 1.
Finally, I move that we approve fund transfers of $293,122.25 as per the April 10th, 2024 bills list.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion about our interfund transfers? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of paying our interfund transfers as listed on the April 10th, 2024 bills list, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. That brings us to our second round of public comment. If there's anyone who'd like to come up and give a comment, now's the time.
John D. April, Newtown Grant, biggest and the best. just want to know where everybody went. I came in tonight, it was standing room only, and I guess they don't realize that at the end of a comedy show, is a lot of times it's the best time to be there. Anyhow, there was a couple comments earlier by Mr. Mack. He was talking about complaints he got from residents. Don't know who they were, he didn't tell. I guess they weren't here tonight. But yeah, it pertained to something that's going to be across the street from them, somewhere in their township. They should make every thing they could do to get here at the meeting so they could be heard in person. You know, I don't like hearing from a supervisor that solicits complaints on social media when you don't even know who he's talking about, or it's just coming out of his mouth and nobody said a word about it. Thank you.
Any other comments? Is there any need for?
No executive session, Mr. Chairman.
I should check about old business or new business.
Oh, okay. Yep, old business, new business, right?
Any old business, any new business? Okay, seeing none, now I can ask, no need for an executive session.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
And so without objection, I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everyone, for participating.